All right, welcome to Power of Percussion Podcast. Today we have Bobby Yates and Jyn Yates out of Adair County in Kentucky. Welcome to the Power of Percussion Podcast, you guys.
Hey.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, you're welcome. So I'm really excited to have you guys on because you all have some experience that we haven't heard about yet. So first off, tell us a little bit about yourselves and your experience with percussion.
You want me to go first, Dad?
Yeah.
All right. So my name is Jyn Yates, and like you said, from Adair County, been drumming, for a long time. Thanks to my dad here, who was, a drummer for a long time, and then basically kind of showed me some techniques when I was a kid, and I kind of followed him around to his, his gigs and stuff when I was a kid, and just always had a love for it. Most of the family on Dad's side, on the Yates side, a lot of them played different instruments, and usually the holidays were a time we'd gather and jam out and, and all that stuff. And now my dad now lives where my grandparents used to live, and the music room is still the music room, the drumatorium. And, just basically grew up here, did marching band, was playing in bands thanks to my dad. I don't know what age, but probably 14 or 15. Yeah, when I first started my first band. And then just went on and ended up moving to Louisville and was in media for a long time, and then ended up pursuing music around age 30. So here we are 10 years later. That's just kind of my little background. I'll let Dad talk a little bit about his playing experience.
All right. That sounds great.
I don't know what to say.
Well, did you play when you were a youngster? Did you play the drums as a young child?
Well, yes, ma'am, but before that, I played a guitar, but I didn't get very good on it. It tore up. It was cheap. And then later, I started playing the cornet, and I played it in the beginning band, but at the same time, I was playing drums, at home, and in a few bands around this, I don't know if you'd really call them bands or not, because it was just a bunch of us kids,
Uh-huh.
Well, before I ever got any drums, I was always beating on, everything.
Yeah. Pots and pans and garbage cans and...
Yeah, my parents had an aunt and uncle that he was a doctor, a surgeon, pretty well known, and they gave my mom and dad an older leather chair. It wasn't very pretty, but they thought a lot of it.
Yeah.
So I had a buddy. He's still one of my best friends. He lives in Lexington. He gave me a couple of little sticks. Now these sticks weren't drumsticks; these were metal.
Oh.
Chrome sticks.
Wow.
And so I would get in there on that leather chair when my parents wasn't around, and because they would bounce real well.
Oh, yeah.
On that leather chair.
Oh, yeah.
When I say the chair, I'm talking about the arm.
So you're saying that was a nice practice pad.
Yeah. Well, I didn't have a practice pad. So boy, did I ever get in a world of trouble. I beat on that chair, on the, whatever you call it, part of that chair, not aiming to do any damage, but it split. This chair was old, and so it split the leather, and it was real leather.
Oops.
Oh, I got a whipping like you wouldn't believe.
Well, yeah, I can see that happening.
Okay, so then, real quick, the next thing happens is I came up with an idea, or somebody did, I think it was me, that back then your coffee cans were metal, not plastic.
Mm-hmm.
And so I came up with this idea to get me a bunch of coffee cans and to paint them candy apple red. And I did. And to make a snare drum, now you realize we didn't have a lot of money. Okay, so I would take the plastic lid off the metal coffee can and put aluminum foil under there, and you'd be surprised at how good that it sounded. Of course, it didn't sound as good as a real drum, but And then I got my neighbor fella, him and his wife run a big department store down here for a small town. And so he had hat box. And they were real good friends. So he gave me a hat box, empty one,
Uh-huh.
And I got me a foot pedal from somewhere. And I got a cymbal that was cracked, a heavy cymbal. And between all that, I came up with a little drum set,
That's
it sounded
nice.
It sounded pretty good.
Yeah.
And I run into one of my old buddies here back in the summer, and lived right up the street, and we were talking a little bit, and he said, I remember when you didn't have no drums. And I said, I do too. And he said, you had coffee cans, he said.
Oh,
wow. He was right,
So Dad's gone now to be a pretty nice collector, and he's got a lot of really cool pieces now.
Yeah, well, you know what? You came from coffee cans. Well, that chair first, that nice leather chair.
I'm telling you, that's
to coffee cans, all the way to the drumatorium.
Yeah.
And so the drumatorium. Now this thing's nice. You need to tell me about this because I've seen bits and pieces online. This drumatorium, I've heard about all kinds of different instruments. What do you have in there?
I'm gonna answer that for him just because I'm sitting here looking at it.
Okay.
Well, it's always been full of drums, and it's way full of drums right now. But I don't know how big the piece is, but it's probably a 10-piece. The wooden Ludwig ones from the 70s.
Oh, this would be 4.
Yeah, it's about my guess is about a 10-piece. It's a huge,
it's close to a
huge drum set that he's got right as the centerpiece, and then a couple of organs in there. One's a pump organ. And then, a lot of other vintage drums, but he also loves hand drums and percussion, obviously. So there's some, go-go bells and some congas up in there. There's, there's the gong, a 3,000-year-old gong, that hung in the Shaolin Buddhist monk temples in Indonesia.
That's
some
cool.
chimes up in there. I don't know. There's a lot of random stuff in there, even some, mistakes that Ludwig considers it from the 70s that are really vintage and strange pieces, but probably some of his favorites are the little timbales, and he's got the mini timbales on top of the regular timbales.
Cool.
A lot of really cool vintage equipment, a lot of cool snare drums, and so the conga, and he's got an awesome djembe, Michelle, that you would love.
Ooh,
it's just the thing will vibrate for days.
Oh, I can't wait to hear that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, why are you both? I mean, both of you guys. You can answer it separately. Why are both of you so passionate about percussion?
You want to answer that one?
I got to be honest. I don't really know the answer to that, except that I got over the years. I got lucky enough to play in some. Well, I figured up one time it was over 50 bands.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
But that's why I can't get Jennifer to understand that the reason I'm no good much anymore is because I need some live musicians.
Yeah.
Most all my life I didn't practice drums too much. I just started playing with a bass player and a lead guitar player,
mm-hmm.
an organ player, like that, and I can just kind of. Not bragging or anything, but I can just fall right into that and do stuff I haven't done for years. But to go in there and just to practice, I have to have some motivation or something.
Yeah.
I really do.
It's more fun playing with people, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah, and as a drummer, whenever the bass, if you got a good bass player, man, it just don't get much better than that, really, in a way, because that bass player, you work together.
Right.
You work.
That rhythm section.
Uh-huh.
But
my answer, Michelle, is that it makes me happy. That's why I do
me
it.
too.
Because it's just, I don't know, there's something about playing drums that's really, peaceful to me.
Michelle, she just don't come home often enough, though. I wish she'd come home or something.
Well, I love watching both of you all play together.
Say it again.
I said I love watching both of you play together. I think it's so cool that you all share this passion.
Like I say, I need to practice. I really do.
Doesn't everybody?
Well, see, I used to practice when I was growing up, not because anybody made me or something. I just wanted to. I would practice 4 hours every day of the week. But just because I wanted to,
Yeah.
And so now I don't practice that much, I'm not want nobody to feel sorry for me or nothing. But so when Jennifer comes around and she's willing to play, well, man, that's just I love it. I just love it.
Oh, that's got to be energizing. It's got to make you feel good.
One thing I want to be sure and say too, and I don't want this to be misunderstood. But now I was playing, even though I was 10 years old, I was playing in a really good band in Lebanon, Kentucky on a regular basis. In fact, one time we had a contract for every Friday night for a year. And the point about it all is they wouldn't even let me in that place, if it hadn't been for the other band members being older.
Oh.
But anyway, I just really loved. Back then, I guess you'd say my practice was actually playing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really get to practice. But,
yeah, and both of us are. Dad was in the Adair County Marching Band, which here in Adair County, for those who don't know anything about the state or the county, Adair County is one of the winningest marching bands in the history of the state. And Dad was in the first year that they won.
Yep.
And he was a big marching band guy, so he, was probably showing me the 5-stroke roll by the time I was a real small child. And then it was real imperative, here it's kind of like a family tradition thing that if your folks were in the band, then they put their kids in the band and their kids in the band, and it's a tradition here. So, I was in the marching band following in his footsteps.
Oh, that's very cool too, to have that tradition, because I know this band quite well with the state marching band. They win state marching band a lot, and it's an incredible marching band. So that's really cool that you all share that.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. I wouldn't. I'm trying to be quiet. Okay, I really am. I can't hardly go without saying though that of course we had a really, really great band director. He actually taught us more about living than we did about music. But when I was in 1970, when I was a sophomore, the year 70-71 school year, that's the year that we won first place in the state. That the first time Adair County had ever won first place in the state. Well, so what happened? The year or two before, we had a lot of drummers. And they were all good. I knew every one of them. Mm-hmm. But they graduated, see. And so after they graduated, I was playing the cornet, and I went to the band director and asked him, would he let me play the drum, march and snare? And he said, well, I don't know. He said, come up to my house on Saturday morning at 10 o'clock, and I'll have a drum there, and we'll see. And I said, okay. So I go up there, and I didn't know it, but I had learned to hold my sticks traditional if you played left-handed. I didn't know that. and so
left-handed traditional.
I did everything. I did everything he told me to do, and I did it okay. And he said, well, I think that'll work out real good, for you to play this night. And he said, by the way, he said, you're left-handed, right? And I said, no, sir. And I said, I'm right-handed. And he said, well, you got to hold sticks like this. And it's kind of like throwing a baseball with the other arm,
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't do squat. And he said, well, you go home and you just keep practicing. Well, my point is that once I got in after I'd been in there a while, and we went to state, and we won first in the state, which we'd been to state before, but we got like third, fourth, stuff like that, but we never had got first. And so that year, there was one snare drummer, me, and there was one cymbal player, another guy, and one bass drum player. So that's all we had.
Wow.
I mean, we didn't have like 3 or 4 snare drummers or something. And so when we won 1970-71 school year in Louisville, I mean, well, it was kind of a big deal because Adair County had never won, ever. And so we were really, really tickled, and, we didn't think that we were the best or nothing, but we knew we worked hard in the summertime at band camp, working on the show and stuff. And so anyway, I'm not bragging or nothing like that, but I can honestly say that I was the only snare drummer at that time period, when we won.
That is excellent.
I'm proud of that,
That is something to be proud of. And, at that time, too, and as small as the group is.
Like, I don't think I'm better than anybody or nothing.
Well, and as small as the group and that kind of stuff, like now it's changed a lot. They have instructors for every group. They've got a bass instructor, they've got a tenor drum instructor, they've got a snare drum instructor. They've got an instructor for every single instrument.
That's right.
They didn't have that back then, did they?
No, ma'am. No, except for the band camp that we would go to, for close to a week every month. It was usually in July or August. Okay, when we would go to that band camp, it might sometimes be in June. I've done forgotten now, but it would really be hot. But we did have different drum instructors at the band camp that were really good. They just like blew me away. I was like, man, I want to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Because they were that good. But so anyway, I'll hush. But my point about all this is that I never ever thought I was any better than anybody else. But when those guys had graduated, I would not have been the only snare drummer if it hadn't been for them graduating. And they were awesome. They were really good.
Yeah.
So I mean, really, I know their names, but I don't know if I'm supposed to use their names.
I was going to say, Michelle, about the time that I got into the marching band, which was like, the 90s, I mean, the pressure was on then. And I've never felt pressure like that ever because they were consecutively winning state championships. And the pressure was on to actually continue winning,
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, when the first year I came in, we had 20 seniors graduate. I mean, there was only like 60 people in this band, so that was a large chunk of like really experienced players. And then you had all these young freshmen coming in, so it was really stressful. But I ended up on the pit and the sidelines, playing timpani, marimbas, and set on all the big stuff that you couldn't carry, which I really loved. But then I would march like snare or cymbals or something in parades, things like that.
I want to tell you something about Jennifer. As a parent, the Adair County band had been working on their show, and so when they first got it, ready to show to the public, it was kind of like a private thing. But anyway, so we go out there to the football field to watch them play. Well, it'd been raining. It wasn't raining at the time, but it was muddy. Well, and so it's kind of funny if I can tell it right. So I'm out there, Jennifer's in the pit, and there's 2 or 3 more people in the pit,
Yeah.
And all of them got stuff to do. Well, Jennifer, she would run down here and play whatever this snare drum or whatever, and then run up there,
You know how it is. They always have you running from 10-yard line to the other 10 lanes.
Yes.
So they're performing, to show the public and everything, mainly the parents and stuff. Well, and all of a sudden, Jennifer was running, and she slipped and fell in the mud.
Oh, man.
Tripped over a flag girl's flag.
Okay.
Now those flag girls, man.
But what I want to say is that she had to hit the great big bloody bass drum, and she was down on the ground, laying flat on the ground. And so she picked up this flag and hit the bass drum right at the right time. I mean, from like 8 feet away.
Not a mallet though, Michelle. It was a flag.
Well, and here's what I told her. I said, if anybody gives you any trouble about that, I said, you tell them, say, that's the way we rehearsed it, and that's the way I'm going to do it.
There you go. We meant to do that, right? Like, that's what you say.
I was never so embarrassed in all my life. And they captured it on tape, because, back then they'd be rolling tapes, like VHS cassette tapes. And then next Monday, we'd all watch it back, to, like, critique our performance. And I bet that they replayed that a million times.
Oh, my gosh.
For the whole school. I mean,
Michelle, we're here fighting each other over who gets to talk next. I just basically want to tell you, like, one more thing, I guess. And that is that after Adair County won that first year, it was going to be a governor inauguration, Frankfurt. And we got invited. Well, in fact, we got invited to the Rose Bowl, but we didn't have any money, But so we go to the governor inauguration, and of course they failed to tell me that it was 7 miles that I got. See, back then, you didn't have a thing that held that drum out there level in front of
like a harness.
Oh, my gosh.
Wrapped around your left leg. Your strap went around there, a metal thing. And, so every time that you raised your left leg up, the drum came up. So you had to follow your drum, with your sticks. Well, we never complained, but that parade didn't start and stop and go all the way through real quick. We would start and stop and sit there for like 20, 30 minutes, standing at attention. And but most of these people haven't carried a snare drum attached to their left leg for like 7 miles.
No, they have not.
It's no joke. I know you know.
Wow, I'm impressed. I couldn't have gone like 2 blocks with that. Okay, much less 7 miles.
Yeah,
that's a true story. And you wound up right at the Capitol. You had to go the last half mile or something up the hill to the Capitol.
And that's just a little portion of the marching band experience that we both have. But Dad's also been playing in bands since he was 10, and me probably since at least 13 or 14. And neither one of us really ever stopped. Most of our lives playing music with a bunch of different bands and stuff too. Outside of the school stuff,
Right. And so, Jen, that's what I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you, how'd you go from like this marching band, because it's like a competitive marching band.
Yeah, very.
To doing what you're doing now. Like, tell me about that.
Oh, you mean like teaching and playing?
Yeah, like you went from all the competitive stuff to what you're doing now.
Yeah, it was funny because I was already playing a drum set before I really got into the band, and I actually played clarinet and bass clarinet for a long time, and some Barry saxophone, and I wanted to play drums, and there was a whole big ordeal over that, and I eventually ended up on the sidelines playing, but I think my dad had a garage, a really nice shop. And I would have a lot of my little friends over, play guitar, and we'd try to play some rock and roll and stuff. And then Dad would kind of sit out in the garage with me and kind of like, kind of coach me a little bit here and there. But I think, and I may get the story wrong and he correct me, but when I was about 13 or 14, right, some guys come knocking on the door.
Yeah.
And they were looking for a drum set player. And, of course, they knew my dad was, really kind of well known around this area for drum set and playing in bands. And they wanted my dad, and they had gotten a gig opening up for Tim McGraw at the county fair.
Nice.
And they were in need. They had a band together since the college years. These guys were like 10, 15 years older than me. And so Dad, I think, finally said, I don't want the gig, but I want you to take my daughter, or consider my daughter, right?
You mean your mom?
Yeah, my dad and my mom. And then eventually I ended up playing with these guys, and that was one of my big first gigs was opening for Tim McGraw,
That is incredible.
He wasn't really known at the time, and he had actually, before I got to play with him, he hit big with Indian Outlaw and Don't Take the Girl. And then the next thing you know, I'm opening up for him, and he's like, thousands of people are showing up, and
that's
it was just crazy. But I went on to start with that band, was called White Horse, and then we were a country southern rock band, and they used to be like an 80s hair band kind of thing in their college days, and they kind of just coached me, and Dad would go along with me to the gigs, and we ended up, playing all around the state and played with the Kentucky Headhunters and doing all kinds of cool stuff, and these guys kind of knew how to run a band successfully already, so, they bought a trailer, and we bought a bunch of equipment, and we'd play these JC conventions and all kinds of like random things around the town or around the state of Kentucky. And Mom and Dad was just always really supportive, you know, the whole way through. So that kind of started it. And then I had to leave them when I moved to Louisville for work in '99. And then when I got to Louisville, you know, I answered a bunch of ads, people looking for drummers. I was in media full time, 9 to 5, but I kept playing music on the side, and then started writing. You know, I had like a chick punk rock band called The Confessional. It was a 2-piece, and we put out a record together. And then I started doing records from that point on. You know, just with all these different groups. And yeah, go ahead, Dave.
I have 2 things I thought of. I want to be sure and mention. Okay,
all right.
It's not important, but it's one of them is kind of funny.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's hear it.
We lived in an old house that my grandma and grandpa had owned years before. And I had the drums upstairs in the first room. You had to go up this crooked stairway. And when you got to the top, that's where the drums were at. And I'm talking about when Jennifer was little. She hadn't learned to play yet. Okay. And so there wasn't a lot of room in there. But anyway, I remember just as well as everything. So, let's see. Let me think. I'm about to forget what I was going to tell you. All right. Okay. So I had started to, you know, show her a little bit, and then, okay. Now here's what I'm trying to tell you: is she was very high tempered, and she probably, I don't know, but she probably gets that from me because I'm very high tempered.
Well,
so I knew that when I would show her something up there on the drums, you know, that if I showed her and stayed there, okay, if I stayed with her, that more than likely we would get upset and, you know, and be a problem. So what I would do is I would show her something, and then I would tell her, I'd say, now, Jennifer, I'm going to go out in the shop and do a little work and stuff, and I'll come back after a while and check on you. And what that did is that enabled me and her both to not get mad at each other, and so I would kind of wait until another day when she would say, you know, ask me to show her something else. You know, not that I know everything. I don't know everything, but the point is, you know, you gotta start somewhere. And so anyway, I think one of the reasons it worked out so good is like I didn't put a lot of pressure. I didn't put a lot of pressure on them, you know. I mean, I didn't say, well, you got to do this or you got to do that. You know, I just kind of let her do what she wanted to do.
Yeah.
And you know.
Very cool.
And, well, I mean, I'm not smart, but I just knew that we would get into it, you know.
No, that's actually is smart, because a lot of teachers, you know, there's a ton of teachers out there that'll say to students, you have to practice this and you have to practice this and you have to practice it this amount of time. Yeah. There's no exception, you know. And like some people don't respond to that very well, you know. So you're smart knowing your child and what motivates her, you know.
Yeah, and I was going to say in our case, I knew that I was high-tempered. And I knew that she was a little bit high-tempered. And I thought, you know, I got to do something to work around this high-tempered, because otherwise you'll never learn nothing, and, you know, and I won't be able to teach her. So, you know, not bragging, but I tell you what, after playing in some really good bands here locally for years, they would play a while, and then they'd take off a year or two, you know, and then they'd play again, you know, like that. Okay, so my point is that this band was called Fargo. They changed their name to Fargo. And so what happens is, not bragging them, but they were pretty good, you know, really good. Top notch. Okay. So, actually, I'm trying to think without talking to me. Actually, a lot of this time, I'm going to electronic school in Shively in Louisville. And so we're still playing, you know, playing some pretty good jobs. So I would either have to drive from Louisville or whatever, you know, like that. Well, we got hooked up. Some of the guys that I knew were older and smarter, and they knew they knew they had contacts. Well, they got to know Exile, and back at that time, Exile was. I mean, you just couldn't hardly get much better than Exile. I mean, I loved them, boy. And so we got to be in the, whatever you want to call it, the opening band, for their shows.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know how many we did. Probably, I just don't know for sure. Maybe 12, 15, something like that. But so anyway, it was an honor to know these guys, how good they were and stuff, And those bands, that band Exile, man, they just were something. They were just like great, in my book. And,
the band he's talking about had a hit in 1978 with I Want to Kiss You All Over.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah, I remember the band. I think
really
I was
cool,
young.
like, music history down in these parts.
Yeah, I was real young at that time, but it was still a popular tune when I was old enough to remember. That's pretty awesome.
Another thing about it, too, and I'm trying to hush, but another thing is, I love that song that they play all the time, but now they had many, many more songs that were even better. That's why I don't really understand why they don't play those. But we played places like Campbellsville, we played Somerset, we played, can't think of all of them now.
Lebanon.
Yeah, Lebanon, Campbellsville, just a whole lot of places. But it was just I don't know how to explain how it was, because they were just so good, and they had the biggest speakers. I don't think I have still yet seen any speakers as big. I mean, they were the size of the top of a door by about like 4 feet wide, and they had a bunch, and they was really extremely loud, but they had quality. Their music was quality, and their vocals were quality, and so it didn't really, it wasn't just a bunch of noise or nothing. It was so, and like I said, I've done forgotten now what I was going to say about them.
What's funny is they get classified as a dance band all the time, but they even had a slew of hits in country radio too in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, I think.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, I want to ask you this, and then if you remember what you were going to say, just pipe in and say it. So when that's all right. No, if you think of it in just a little bit, just come on and tell us. So when you hear the words "power of percussion," what does that make you think of?
Man, it makes me think of like a really intense drummers, like a big, group of them, because power by numbers, man. There is something about a vibration of a drum, and man, when you get like 100 drummers doing the same thing on the same page, there is power of percussion. I've always said, from my studies, drums can even make you go into trance-like states. There has been proven, some of those voodoo Haitian drummers and stuff like that. Some of the books that they've put out that I've read talks about, there's certain vibrational tempos and things that you can tap into as a drummer that's very meditative, and it's very healing. And, it goes back to even that little book that on women drummers talks about the history,
of the
how
frame drummers.
The drum was used as a healing purpose. So to me, like, power of percussion, is a lot deeper. Like, I feel like I can heal things. And I mean, I know you're like one of the best music teachers I know. And, and I've been doing private teaching for a long time, but from just teaching like autistic kids, or, I had a girl who was mute and couldn't even speak that I taught. And just, over that course of 14 years of teaching all those kids, seeing it really change their lives for the better. And, some of the kids that had issues with like grabbing their sticks and stuff like that, they could power through that later on with just a little practice. And it was like, you can talk to people through drumming without even having to talk to them, literally.
Yes, I love that too. It's so amazing.
Truly the universal language. There is power in percussion, and to me, music is made up of 3 parts, but technically 2, in my opinion. It's rhythm and melody, and you can't play melody without rhythm, but you can play a rhythm without melody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So rhythm is the complete foundation of everything.
It sure is.
No matter
yeah.
what no matter if you sing or you play flute or you play guitar, everybody's playing the same rhythms when it gets down to it.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. You're absolutely correct.
So power percussion is, percussion is power, and it is the universal language in my mind, music,
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, I didn't think of what I forgot, but I did think of a couple more real quick things. Let me just tell you, this doesn't really have to do with drumming right here exactly. But over when we were playing with Exile, front band, Cargo. Okay, over at Lebanon, Club 68, which is a very famous, it's gone now, but it was a very famous club. Everybody in the world has been there.
Ike and Tina played there.
The Kingsman, Louie, you name it, they've been there. Okay, so we're over there one Saturday afternoon, real sunshiny. Exile are out there. They put new strings on their guitar on the steps of the back of the club. You had to go up these steps. And then the lead singer, who's deceased now, but he was a great man. Okay, well, they were all out there throwing a Frisbee. Well, see, I was just a dumb kid. I didn't really know how to throw a Frisbee. And so we're out there in the parking lot, which it wasn't blacktop, it was creek gravel. So we're out there, throwing this Frisbee, and it comes to me, and I get it. I get all tore up, sided, so I throw it, however you call it. Well, dumb me, it goes up on top of 68 Club. Well, see, up there, it was about 15 feet or more, off the ground up there. And I thought, how in the world, I felt like an idiot. And I thought, I couldn't get up there. And so I guess it's okay to say Stokely, he's the deceased lead singer, but he was a great man. He was, he was a lot Indian. I mean, he was, he won several dancing, clogging things. And all. Anyway, my point is, he climbs up there just like a little spider. I mean, in about a minute, and gets that Frisbee and throws it down. And I still felt like an idiot, as a kid. And I told him I was sorry, and they said, "Don't worry, man, it's okay, no problem,
How has percussion made your life better? How has it made your life better?
Oh, wow. Well, it's made me happier, that's for sure.
That's amazing.
I mean, gosh, we could talk all day about that one,
I do got to mention this. It's not relative either, but my older brother, he's quite a few. He played he played drum in the Army when he was in the Army, So I heard stuff about playing drums, and then I had a cousin that played in the Navy in one of those, what do you call it,
the Navy band?
Yeah, but it was where you got the flutes, the bugles.
Oh, drum corps.
Yeah, drum corps, yeah.
I have a picture somewhere. There's several people in that. So I'm not trying to get off the subject, but I just wanted to also say that, Jennifer and I aren't the only drummers that's been in this family, over the years. There's been others.
Wow.
Yeah, we got a whole slew of musicians in the family, from bluegrass players, mandolin pickers, to my grandmother played the banjo and the guitar and the dulcimer, and just a lot of singers, all kinds of, it's a very interesting background in the family. It runs
in the family. That is.
But as far as your question about, how has percussion made our lives different? I mean, in every single way, gosh, I can't even think about the people I would have never met had I not played music. I've met some of the, great players all over the world, and just, I do feel like, especially at a time like right now in the outside world that we have to deal with, music can bring peace to people, and it is the universal language. The one thing that we all have in common that we love, usually is music of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
But also getting to share that gift. I'm sure, as a teacher, getting to pass the gift of music along to these kids for 13 years that, some of them now have record deals and are touring the country, is pretty special in itself. It's a whole nother moving thing when you teach a child how to play Cream, Sunshine of Your Love, and then you see them up on the stage one day doing the same thing, and they're they always come back and seek you out and thank you for being their music teacher, you know. So from a joy standpoint, like one of the things that I love so much is to teach and just to, you know, I'll show them how to read notation or something like that, and you know, or how to write out something that they hear musically, and it's just fun to get to pass that along, you know. And from that to hand-eye coordination, you know, I definitely believe it helps with the brain, and you know, and for me, it's a mental health thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I'm not playing, I forget what the famous quote is by Stuart Copeland, but it's something like, you know, musicians do what they do because when they're not doing it, they go crazy. And it's true, because when you take a long time off and you're not playing, I can see a large difference in my mental health.
Yeah.
As well as my physical, because, you know, drummers, we pretty much burn more calories than a marathon runner, you know, in an hour of playing.
Right. Because
it is so physical. But yeah, there's so many things that, you know, it's touch. You have to remember, like, I don't even have a memory of any of my childhood without a drum involved in it. You know what I mean? So I can't even imagine my life without percussion or music in some sort, because it's always been there consistently.
Yeah. And, you know, it is one of those things that, you know, now we have people that are researching all the things that you just mentioned, the health benefits, you know, it's bringing peace and, you know, helps lower anxiety and stress and all these other things that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
There are researchers
now
you know, proving that what you're saying is true.
Yeah.
It's all true.
And, you know, just because we've known each other for a while, you know, as a teacher, a private teacher, I wasn't in the schools doing it, but I was on the side doing it, you know. And I feel like we were at the forefront of teaching, you know, taking on, you know, I got asked one day, would you take an autistic kid? And I thought, well, sure, why wouldn't I, you know? And then after that, it was, you know, people, even older people coming in with fibromyalgia. Would I take them? Would I take a kid that couldn't speak? You know, would I?
Yeah.
And it was this really interesting thing. It was a interesting experiment to watch, to teach, you know, for 2 or 3 years these you know, people with these issues, and watch it change their lives for the better. And I kept saying, oh my gosh, I've got to get some sort of video together, some kind of package together to show the world what I'm seeing happen, and how music is changing these kids' lives for the better. You know,
that's the power of percussion, Jyn, and I'm really happy that you did what you did, because they don't have issues, that those are their gifts. And what you gave them was a gift, and you probably brought more happiness to those people than anything else could have, you know, just by putting sticks in their hands.
Yeah, no kidding. You know, teaching is a gift. It sure is, and to be able to share the love of music is probably one of the most awesome things.
I just thought of something I could barge in here.
Okay, come on now, Bobby, tell us.
Well,
I do. My mind just only works part-time.
That's all right. We're here for you.
I think they dropped me. My brother told me they dropped me 5 or 6 times when I was I'm not really sure. I can't remember.
Well, that's probably why you can't remember.
That's probably what it is.
That needed drum hits behind it.
But then when they tied me up at the tree, they could have had something. Now, one of them is getting at, I think you had a question earlier about, I forget exactly what the question exactly was, but what I'm trying to say is that one thing I have realized, and I'm 64 years old, okay, that there's a lot of things, you know, that I can't do, you know, at 64, and kind of bad health, you know, and had a heart attack in 2007, you know, a lot of things like that. But, you know, I can still play on the drums, and whether there's anybody around or not, of course, I'd rather that Jennifer would be around, you know, but if she's not around, I can still go in there and play on them, you know, and it tells me that I am able to do something.
Yeah.
So if I can do something, then I'm not doing it. You know, I mean, like, I've got, you know, to enjoy the rest of your life. Okay, do what you can do. Be nice to people if you can. And, you know, I'm not always nice. And, you know, but be as nice as you can. Okay? And and still be able to play the drums. So it's a gift. I think it's a gift that God gave me, and at 64 to still be able to do it and still enjoy it and bring happiness to me, then it just don't get much better than that. It just don't. Other than having Jennifer to for us both to be playing.
Oh, that's beautiful. That is beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. That's so beautiful. You're gonna make me start crying, Bobby.
But it is true. Don't get me wrong. Money can make you happy. There's a lot of things can make you happy a little while. But to be able to do something. See, I used to do a lot of different kinds of things. I used to install submersible water pumps. I used to inspect oil wells for the state. I used to dig ditches. I've done a lot. I'm not bragging, but I'm just saying I liked all that, but it didn't compare with being able to play some music. It just didn't compare. And so now I'm not able to do a lot of those things. A few of them maybe, but the thing is, though, I can still play on those drums, and and so I'm happy that I can, and thankful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Michelle, you'll love this too. Just doing music full time can be very, very stressful and not as financially beneficial sometimes as others. But every time I go to give it up, Dad is always right here going, you better not give that up, and he's always reminding me to be humble and to be nice and, and to be thankful to God for my gift and to continue sharing it. And he's always been, very adamant that, to love what I do and maybe not give up every time that I'm just like, oh, I'm about to get a 9 to 5. And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I absolutely understand, and it's smart for him to do that.
Cornet and our clarinet, I'm not sure that we can make it.
I'm not sure we could. Definitely not sure that we can make it on that. I don't even. I only think I remember like hang on sloopy or something. That's it.
I can play the tabs on the cornet.
I think all of us have something in common. We started on a different instrument besides percussion. I started on clarinet also.
Isn't that funny how that works?
Yeah, I started on that clarinet, and boy, you know what happened? They were starting to audition. I was in middle school, played the clarinet there, and they were auditioning for the high school marching band. The day they auditioned me on clarinet, they said, well, you didn't make it on clarinet. You have a choice. You can either twirl the flag or play the drums. And I was like, thank you very much. Sign me up for the drums. I'm right there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's super cool. Good choice.
Yeah, good choice.
You'll trip over flags. I just use them as a bass drum mallet.
Exactly. I was like, that flag is not going to be happening.
Over one, though, just remember to tell them that that's the way we rehearsed it.
Right.
So that's the way I'm gonna do it.
We're back to that story again.
So here's I have one more, and this one is going to be a tough one because
Oh no.
Do you have a favorite drum or favorite drums? I'll just put an S on that because it's hard to choose just one. Favorite drum or drums in your collection that you would highly recommend. So like part of this podcast is like product reviews type thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you have something that you totally think that people need to know about, that you've loved and you is your go-to drum or whatever, please share.
For me, it's my 1970s Black Panther drum set because that's I call them my babies because that was, I believe, the first drum set that I ever got from my dad. If I'm not mistaken, I think he got it at a pawn shop. And I don't, back then that was pre the internet. So nobody kind of knew what they had unless they really knew about drums.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know anything about that particular set. But turns out, after I got to Louisville, I used to not put them in cases and put them in the back of a pickup truck after gigs, when it was raining. Like I literally did. I even covered them in Holstein cow print at one point. And made them look totally different. And then one day I happened to be up in Louisville at a drum store, and I was showing the guy what I had, and I'd taken the print off, And he said, "Wow, do you know how expensive these drums are?" And I said, "No, I had no idea." And then he educated me on them, and I've gone on to record, probably at least 10 different records with that particular kid.
That's amazing.
I don't know if anybody knows anything about it, but they're vintage Ludwigs, and they're a black leather patent wrap. And I forget what kind of wood is it.
Maple.
I think it's maple shells, and they just sound amazing. And of course, I love my 60 Superphonic Ludwig snare drum. It's one of my favorites. It's usually my main go-to. But other than that, if you want to get crazy with, I love my little electronics too. That DTX Yamaha pad. Then I think you've got one too. That thing's pretty rad. You can do all kinds of cool stuff with it if you want to get, into the modern day drum stuff. But for me, my personal favorite is the 1970s Black Panther Ludwig kit that I've got.
Cool.
And that's the one I'm going to be playing on, probably all through the next year.
Very cool. Yeah, I saw those at a gig of yours, and they're beautiful, beautiful drums.
Yeah,
and they sound great.
They almost seem to be in almost mint condition. There's not a lot of scratches on them. The leather's still really perfectly done, and they've got the 70s badge, Ludwig badge. It's olive and blue. So with the serial number on them. So I've taken, I didn't take care of them, but thank God that nothing ever happened to those because I didn't know what I had. And by the way, somebody from Ludwig just recently told me that if you take the black leather wrap off and look in between that and the drum, and there are eagles printed under that evidently they're worth thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I knew nothing about that, but of course I don't want to mess the wrap up on them either. But he told me that they only made so many that had this special eagle print underneath it.
Yeah.
Which is news to me because
That's
I've never
unique.
heard anything like that.
Yeah, that's a pretty fascinating find. They're just hey, by the way, okay, thanks. So by the time you get to be 80, you can be like, oh, I think I might unwrap this now.
Right? Yeah, I'm afraid to unwrap it, but I could be. I like the possibility that I could be sitting on a very classic kit.
Yeah, awesome. That's very cool.
Hey, I'm trying not to say nothing again. I've thought of several things, but I keep forgetting them.
Answer a question about that.
That happens when you get old.
So what about your favorite drum, Bobby?
Huh?
What about your favorite drum?
Yeah, one thing I want to be sure, though, and say, which I shouldn't say a lot of stuff, but I was in high school, and I was playing, I believe I was in high school, pretty sure. Anyway, I was stopped at a filling station, and this guy I know that was about a year older than me got out of his car, and he came over, and he said he had a really expensive snare drum, brand new, in a whatever you call it, container that you put them in.
Case.
And I had one just like it of my own. And he said, Bobby, he said, I bought this, and he said, I can't play. And he said, or I give up, he said, I want you to have this. And I said, oh man, you can't be doing that. I said, that drum costs close to $300, and it was brand new. And he wouldn't have it. But no way, and I'm telling you it's God's truth, because I can take you and show you where we was at when he did. I said, well, I'll tell you what. I said, I'll take it home, and you think about it, a while, and I'll have it. Anyway, to make a long story short, this has been probably, 1970 or 71 or something like that. Okay. And, he never did it. I tried to give it back to him several times, and he would not take it.
What was the drum, by the way?
The Ludwig Superphonic.
Oh, okay.
Same one as you have, Jen.
I know. Well, you can thank my dad for the ones that I have. I have a couple, but the dad gave them to me. So.
Well, I hope I didn't forget what I was going to say. But I was just going to say that I like all the drums I got. I love them all. I really do. But the thing about it, and I'm a snare drum guy. I like snare drums.
Okay.
But I want to say this though, okay, because it's kind of important. All right, that all my life up until several years ago, I always wanted some conga drums, and I never did ever have any back then. And and I got to where I could, buy me some. And I tell you, I've never been disappointed because I just love to hear conga.
Cool.
Yeah, he has these beautiful Latin percussion congas that are kind of purple wood.
Ooh.
And they are just gorgeous now.
Yeah.
But that don't mean I know how to play them, But it's like I was debating years ago, like whether to, spend my money on them. And I've never been sorry that I got them because I just love it. I don't know. It's just another part of trying to make yourself happy a little bit,
Well, and all of them sound different. That's the thing about drums is they all have their unique sound. That's awesome. I'd love to hear those at some point.
Well, we'll bring you down here to Adair. Hey, I was telling Dad about your Miller machine because he's probably never seen anything quite like that.
Yeah. I love that thing. I play that all the time.
It's basically, Dad, it's the triangle. It's a mounted triangle, and they put the beater at the bottom, right, Michelle?
Yeah,
and you just hit it, and it dings the triangle. You don't have to hold it, because when you're in orchestra, you got things going on quick.
That's cheap doing that. But I'll get up here. My part, but I just wanted you to know that, like, with me, it's hard because I love all the drums. And cymbals too, But I guess it would come down between a really good snare drum and conga drums. That's what it would probably come down to.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
It's hard to say,
Yeah.
Dad's got a couple. He's got a really old Rogers snare.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what year that is?
No, probably
it's
the 60s.
60s probably, and then a couple Slingerland. He likes all those vintage, from Ludwig to Rogers to Slingerland, all those classic early drums.
Oh.
Do you remember?
Just go ahead and turn me off right now. No, I was going to mention this one other thing. Now, my father and my mother, I had all the respect, still do, for them in the whole world. But my dad was kind of, he was good with his money, and he didn't waste any of it. Okay, so when we finally decided that the guitar tore up, and then I had to go for about a year or something, trying to get him talking to drums. Well, he didn't want to do it because he thought, this is going to waste money, Well, so finally I get him talked into it. We're going to go to Louisville to a certain music store up there that was a really good store.
I bet she knows that one, actually.
Durloff's Music.
Oh, yeah, Durloff's. I remember that store.
Yeah, but here, I got to tell this part, though. Okay, see, back when I was growing up, the three brands of drums that was considered the best was Ludwig, Slingerland, and Rogers. And it's kind of like smoking cigarettes. If you didn't smoke the right brand, then you just didn't smoke, Well, and, like you didn't smoke Lucky Strikes or Camels or something, But so my point is, my dad and I go, well, okay, well, he's got it in his head. He ain't going to spend much money. Well, so we go in that store, and they tried to sell us everything in there but what I wanted. And of course, I was a kid, a kid ain't supposed to know nothing. All right. So finally, I told my dad, I said, Dad, if I can't have, a good kind, the kind I want, I said, if I can't have that kind, I said, I don't want none. So he kept talking to the salesman guy. The salesman guy was a good guy. And finally, we decided on some Ludwigs, which they had all the other kinds, which they would have been good too, but then they had the cheap off brand kind, that I didn't want, and so they wound up giving him a pretty good deal, I believe, but of course he spent more than he wanted to, but so we come home with those Ludwig drums, and you talk about a happy little boy, man.
Oh.
And they were, I think they were 1960s Silver Sparkle Ludwigs.
I think so.
Yeah, sweet.
And he still has them to this day.
Yep. Really? Oh, those are sweet. Yep. I've seen those. Oh, my gosh. By the way,
yes, you have, because in 2013, when I toured with Kelly Ritchie across the United States, we did 170 shows on the road that year, all throughout U.S. and Canada, and Dad let me use that set, and I took those Silver Sparkles all across the United States.
Sweet. Oh, my gosh. And those drums are beautiful. Those vintage. Oh, my gosh.
That's back when they put real silver in them. Actually, nowadays, they used to actually chip the silver. I learned this from working at Mom's Music, the drum shop. They actually had real silver chips in their silver sparkle back then. And then somewhere along in the 80s, I think they said that they quit doing that, and they actually just made kind of a cheapy look for their silver sparkle from that point on.
Yeah, wow. Well,
but if you still have those old ones, you still got that original silver chipped.
Right.
There is one more little bit thing about it. Okay, the ones that my father bought me, I really, really liked them, but you know how styles change and stuff? Okay, I don't know how long, 6 months or years, still having the lugs that go all the way across the side of the drum.
Yeah.
You know how they are now.
Yeah, the little ones. He's talking about the ones that go, the lugs when they used to go all the way through the drum on both sides.
Yeah.
Versus the one that just goes.
And so, you talk about a hard thing to do was trying to talk my father in again. Now, see, you got to understand, he didn't play any instruments or nothing. He liked music and all, but he was a great guy. He drilled 57 years drilling wells. And that was his life. So, music wasn't really his. He told me one time, he said, my brother played drums and my older sister played trumpet, my other sister played clarinet and organ and all like that. He said, I spent all this money, and he said, teeny hiddly playing nothing. He said, but so my point is, I talked him into going back, us taking those drums up there again that we bought there and trading them in for. So I don't really have the original ones because the lugs, but I do have they changed the lugs.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I really like them.
Well,
I'll try to cuss now.
Well, no, that's okay. I just wanted to thank you guys for sharing these stories about, growing up, both of you as young children playing the drums and doing all that you're doing now and teaching and all the power of percussion that has gone through your life and then those that you've interacted with. That is amazing. So I want to thank you for coming on the show, and most of all, thank you for sharing your love of percussion and the power it possesses in your life and all those that you interact with. So thank you guys for coming on.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
And back at you. Thank you for all you do.
But if you slip and fall and hit that bass drum with that flag, you telling us the way you rehearsed
I know. We meant to do it that way. We meant to do it that way.
I'm never going to live that story down.
I thought it was pretty cool,
All right, everybody. Don't forget to share this podcast and follow us at #PowerofPercussionPodcast. Thank you guys again, and I hope you have a great day, great evening.
Hey, you too, Michelle. Yep. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Michelle.
All right. We'll talk soon.
All right, rock and roll.
All right, peace.